I think the nature of symbol is that so many aspects of self can be projected onto one thing. The symbol blends with the self and becomes something greater, becomes something more. When I look at my work, it's not necessarily self-portraiture in the sense that it's more than me, and at the same time, I'm part of it. I'm Sarah Grass, and I am an artist working in Ridgewood, Queens. My practice is a process of digesting and sharing psychological and spiritual states of being through symbol, through material. I mostly work in drawing, but also have been making objects and scenarios and forming mythology and stories. Drawing has always been a really important process for me. It's a mode of thinking. It became more important to me than ever after years of not drawing at all. For me, drawing is a mirror. It's a process of getting to know what you're thinking through the act of materializing thought. Because it's so immediate, it really allows the soul to be seen before you can even edit yourself. Drawing in repetition in this way, maintaining one symbol as the starting point, has enabled me to really get a read on my emotional state, to see what I'm thinking that I don't know I'm thinking, like a meditation. The symbol that I use across this recent body of work, Phallic Female, is a dachshund. It's an inviting character. It allows people to kind of look into these eyes of innocence and love. And at the same time, the dachshund is this heavily manipulated breed that has been kind of extruded into a hot dog shape for the purpose of human labor, of hunting, specifically at the start, and now as a sort of cute and cuddly lapdog. There's something about the way that the dachshund has become this absurd, bizarrely shaped descendant of the wolf. A human, presumably men, shaped and crafted this animal into the form of the male member. And yet, it's also this goofy version. I think that represents the way that all humans and most beings are kind of extruded into a masculine form in order to gain power. As a child of diaspora, both the Jewish diaspora and Latin American diaspora, I feel really disconnected even from one generation ago. My father is from Chile and left in the 70s, and my family has dispersed all over the world from that point. I'm so distant from my ancestors. I really see this link between the way that we're in some way forced into these paths around the world and get further and further away from any kind of origin. When I started the dog series, I was exclusively making the dog in landscapes. It was important to me that this creature be grounded. I had been working on them for about 3 months when the COVID lockdown happened here in New York, and at that point it became really impossible to feel grounded. And so the landscape kind of blew out into all these other interior scenarios. People always ask me if I have a dog, and I don't. I started drawing dogs, for example, when I was 6. Kind of throwing myself into another being so I could ask more tender questions or express, the way kids do when they play with toys, what's happening in my inner world through this alternative self. But I did at one point have a dachshund, which is how I became intimately connected with this visual. I had the dachshund from the point that I was probably 16 until 30. During that time, I felt like my psyche fused with her because it was this period of becoming an adult. I was dealing with my parents' divorce at the point where I got this dog. The dog and that certain faithfulness replaced in some way my connection to family and gave me this new fuel to love and feel safe loving. Because of that, I think I really, really bonded with this particular dog. And at the same time, I was identifying with her because she was kind of short and goofy looking, and I think that's what's charming about a dachshund, but also you see this underlying strength in them. They can look goofy, but also be strong and vicious and capable and cunning. And I related to that as a young woman because I remember being looked at as sort of this cute, almost toy-like person. And I didn't feel that way on the inside. And so there was this real insight into gender and the ways that we project onto different genders and onto different ages. At first, when I was making these dachshund drawings, I imagined the dachshund being female, but taking on this more masculine shape. But the dachshund for me is a blend of the genders. They're often shown with some kind of spectral, prismatic rainbow that just speaks to being everything at once. I think a lot about masculine and feminine energies as something that's a specific blend for each being or each person. The feminine being really receptive and kind of in the dark, more mysterious, and the masculine being something that's more direct, linear, and outward. The dachshund gives me this opportunity to explore the inner workings of my gender, the inner workings of both of those polarities within me through one creature. In some of the works, I'm really kind of pushing it out symbolically from myself to speak about the world, speak about these polarities in societies, not just within a human or within one person or dog, but rather throughout our society. You know, for years in art school, people would warn me not to make dog art. It's not that easy to take seriously, but that's precisely the reason why I use it, because it is this symbol of a very complex being, literally labeled a toy dog. I have, in my adult years, taken on the challenge of trying to bring back that serious inner world with this sort of cute exterior. My goal is more to talk about the elements of the psyche that underlie cuteness, or that underlie maybe what we might gloss over as insignificant. I'm really for an art that is sentimental without being too kitschy or too saccharine. And so I really wanted to create a body of works on paper that kind of have the whole spectrum. And the way that I make that whole spectrum is by working through my own states of being. About a year ago, I started considering the idea that maybe all of these drawings are really a form of greeting card or sentiment card, in the sense that they're transferring an emotion from me originally into a piece of paper that is then given to others. The dogs are social creatures, and so while they are dealing with a lot of the internal processes that I'm going through as an individual, there's also this sense of them really being open, where I as a human might not be open to share every little feeling. It can channel through the work. Each of these represents a different sense of being human, hopefully even more relatable because they're not human. Being an artist for me is a gift-giving practice. It is living with a growth mindset. It's living with this idea that the self is not static and can shift and morph and change. I have never really considered a way of living without it. It's a space to play in, and that play has always been so important for my understanding of the world, to sort of feel my way through.